All right, welcome everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order at 9:32, and Wyatt has agreed to take minutes until Michael can make it here. I think I have no conflict of interest. Would the rest of you please introduce yourselves?
Susan Schomburg, no conflict of interest.
Wyatt Angelo, no conflict.
Bill Miller, I have no conflict.
Great, thank you. All right, Michael had gotten me his minutes on Saturday, and I have been so busy I didn't get to them until yesterday. So it's my fault. We will just review them next week. We'll get them sent out here in the next couple of days. Not next week, next meeting. So I don't have a lot in my report other than I think we've been making incredible progress. I should say Michael and Tom are going to be joining us a little bit later. And Sarah Absher said she'll be here about 10. So I think, and then we had a number of people signed up as guests, but they may be coming a little bit later. Anyway, I think we've made huge progress, and later after we go through these different article reviews, I'd like to talk about whether you think we need to have a meeting 10, a ninth meeting. Just right now it's a placeholder, and I'm not sure that we're going to need it. So, but I'd like to see what you think after we go through all of these different things. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, we've had continuing discussions. Welcome, Tom. Could you introduce yourself? And you're muted. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
And,
my name is Tom Snipe, and I don't have any conflicts.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Michael said he was going to be joining us in a little bit here. He had people in from Portland who are leaving shortly. So anyway, I was just starting to say, Tom, that I think as we review the articles after the feedback sessions and before the feedback sessions, I'd like us to kind of keep in mind whether we think we're going to need a ninth feedback session. I'm kind of thinking not, but let's see what we think after we've gone through all of that. What a thought, though, to maybe have our last feedback session next Wednesday. So of course we have one tomorrow on Article 7 subcommittees, and then one on Wednesday night for Article 10 other bylaw provisions. So I'd like to just at this point go into the article review and then go back and talk about how the feedback sessions are going, if you have any suggestions, etc. And then we can talk about, I've got review and update the project plan. We can talk about what our plan is for going forward on the overall review. So does that sound okay for an agenda?
That works.
Okay. So I suggest that we go through Article 7 and then Article 10, because those are going into the feedback sessions before we meet again. And our next meeting is actually in 3 weeks. We get a little bit of a break, and then go through the others. And I think we can very quickly speed through Articles 4, 5, and 6. And then could we go back to Article 3? Because that might, I think we made a lot of good progress on Article 3, but it might take a little bit of more time. Does that sound fair?
I don't know what controversy is left for Article 3.
Yeah,
I
think
hope
we beat
none.
that horse to death. So
I think we have. I think we have. And as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, we have, but you never know with Article 3. So plus Sarah will be here for Article 3. And so she said she's going to be here about 10. Be interesting to hear her comments on that. So Article 7 subcommittees, do you want to bring that up, Tom, or do you want me to bring the PDF version up?
Actually, I'm almost completely unprepared.
Okay. All right, then I will bring our PDF up.
Yes, I do have an update which is not posted yet for Article 10, so that'll be live. But everything else, kind of not there yet.
Okay. Let me find thought I had it right here with everything. Oh, that's right. I had the agenda up, so we don't need that. All right, Article 7. Can you guys all see that? So I'm not even bringing up the PowerPoint, which is probably bad. I should have had that ready. So our normal boilerplate here. You guys have seen Article 7 before. Tom and I have just done a little bit of restructuring. And Tom did the process, or the format. So going into the reasoning first and then what the changes are. So do you want to start with this, Tom?
Okay, basically, we're gonna, as with the others, we're gonna talk about what our philosophy was. And I'm not sure we did that first bullet and compares to a task force.
Oh.
That's one of the things we're going to discuss today to make sure whether or not we should move the definition of task force off to the other section.
And I apologize, Tom. I had that comment under the introduction slide and then realized with our format, we don't have a proposed and change in the slide. So
Yeah.
I moved back up here. So
Okay.
I should have let you know. Sorry.
All right, fair enough. And then basically that's just what our philosophy is. I think we're all familiar with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't know that we need any.
So thought that like we did for meetings or for officers, et cetera, we should have a introductory paragraph just saying what a subcommittee is. It's not in the current bylaws. And so drafted this, and I've been concerned as we've talked on, I think, meetings on task forces, maybe not having the same notice requirements or requirements to have everything either hybrid or public. And so we had talked as a committee about, a task force is really just a few members getting together and doing a task, like the name implies, and not doing committee type work of making decisions. So Tom and I talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, so I
about the
think what our
possibility of doing
intent
that.
is that to define task force to be something which does not require open meeting law rules.
Right.
And basically what we'll do is we'll just say it's routine, mechanical, does not produce any recommendations.
Right.
Would it help, Tom, to add that a task force terminates at the completion of the task? Would it make it clear that it's different from a subcommittee?
Yeah, I suppose we could say that, although there will be some task forces like the website which won't expire, but we could say that.
Yeah, I think that's actually the example I was thinking of was the communications team, I guess, could be considered a task force because they're working together, but not making policy or making recommendations to make policy. They're just doing tasks that will go on. As opposed to, say, the community plan that I've heard referred to as a task force from time to time that does. And so they need to be a subcommittee, I think, even if it's ad hoc.
Question with respect to the last sentence there in defining the role. Aren't they also investigative instead of implementation?
Task force?
Yeah.
It's a kind of undefined. As long as it doesn't have to do with policy generation, it could be.
I'm just thinking routine actions are not necessarily investigative.
But you may want to investigate whether or not you want to use this service provider or that. Yeah.
I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint. This is frustrating to not be able to. Make changes, make comments. All right. All right. So kind of some notes here. Just get them down. Well, except this is live. I don't want to make it live.
Live,
While
I suppose.
she's looking there, unless it's on the next slide, we haven't said anything about minority report, which seemed very important. I can't remember if it was Chris or Jeff.
Right.
I think
That's in the
kind of
meetings
covered
area.
Meetings area, yeah.
Okay.
This is just about the mechanics of what subcommittees are meant to do. I don't think subcommittees are meant to produce minority reports, although I suppose we could.
Good.
Yeah, because, you know, some of you guys are pretty unreasonable and I might want to have my own. Well, maybe not that unreasonable.
Well, but I mean, if we say we think Article X should say this or that, and there's been a substantial pushback from the community and feedback sessions, isn't the idea that we would mention that?
I think we're going to generate those minority things when we present the bylaws as a whole. I think we've had some people represent positions, especially like in members, that they wanted particular areas of interest or membership criteria. I'm not sure that that's, well, my thought originally, and I had one, was that we were going to respond to those inputs directly, and that would amount to a minority report. I don't think we've not been doing that formally, and I'm not sure we can, because it's kind of a squirmy thing. It's kind of moves around, people's opinions change. And so I think that until we get something that's kind of baked, we're not going to do anything more formal. Now, the process that I was used to was exquisitely formal. And you can interpret exquisite in any way you like. And so we had to, each and every comment had to have a textual comment and reasoning behind the either any denial of a particular viewpoint. So I don't think we're quite that formal. I think we're okay with not requiring it in the business of the subcommittee.
So why don't we make a
So
note here?
Any
So
other,
did anyone else hear, I think it was Jeff, make a very big deal out of minority reports, and particularly in terms of voting and participation and so forth. And it wasn't so
Yes.
important what the vote is, it was what people thought, and they wanted to have a minority report.
It's under, you're right, Bill, it's under Article 5 meetings.
So when
So
it's,
we'll be actually
it's
reviewing that
baked,
again when we get to Article 5.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
well, Tom said, you know, we're not going to do anything until it's baked. I guess at some point it will be baked. And at that point, I think
Right.
it's incumbent on us to issue this minority report. I guess under Article 5 is fine.
Okay, no, I think you make an interesting point, because I think there could be minority reports within a subcommittee too. So I think that is probably worth something to consider. I want to welcome Commissioner Olson, Doug Olson, today. Thank you for coming, Commissioner Olson. And you're gonna hear where what is the term? The sausage is made today. So
I think Doug actually referenced that at the another meeting.
did he? Okay. So we need to really clarify what a task force is. And does this kind of capture it? The task force is one or more members charged with implementing routine actions that are not subject to OPML. Do we need to give and then we may end up moving this whole thing to Article 10, but we thought it would be a good thing to just clarify what the difference is between a subcommittee and a task force.
Yeah, I think routine actions is a little limiting. It could well be construed that way anyway. And I view task forces as a group, a very small group to accomplish a given assigned task, i.e. whether it's investigating the um, some new internet provider or website provider, investigating or obtaining information to report back to the committee or subcommittee concerning information which may be more complex than just sending out a mailer, which is what that implies.
How about
Following
another,
up, Wyatt, with what you just said, what if we change the word routine to assign?
Sure.
Or add it.
Because that would show that they're not going rogue. They're, they have kind of marching orders to
Yeah,
do something.
I think that works, Susan.
Is that better?
I think I'd strike
Yeah.
out routine.
I'd also like to add the idea that they are not producing recommendations to I'm not saying it very well. Anyway, they're not providing recommendations for policy. It's just a mechanical thing, and I'm
Right.
kind of at a
So,
loss for words.
so Wyatt and Tom is going to massage this later, but I hear what you're saying, Tom. So
Just
assigned
put it-
actions that
yeah.
do not involve policy suggestions.
Yeah, they do not involve policy.
I think somebody was suggesting taking out the word routine. Nancy.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. I had to get people's pictures out of the way of the menu here. Thank
Yeah,
you,
we
Bill.
would- Okay,
Okay. All right. Does that sound okay? Whoops.
Oops,
yeah,
it went
I might
away.
wordsmith that a little bit, but that's
Right.
that's the right that's the
Yeah,
right
I think that's
sense.
a good idea.
Okay. So before tomorrow, we'll work on that. If any of you guys have some suggestions, feel free.
Looks like you should have an and after OPML.
And yeah,
Thank you.
okay, good.
All right. Anything else? This part's new. I mean, existing. I don't think we have any
Yes, what
changes
about
from
the
the current
minority
bylaws.
report?
So I think that
we
could be
may-
later.
Yeah,
Because we've got more here.
We could fold that into meetings to include
That's a good point.
because that's
Add
where the rest
into-
of it is.
Yeah, add to Article 5.
I think that's where it belongs. But yeah,
We'll talk about that when we get to Article 5 shortly. Gonna add that.
or Longley. No,
Let's hope not. Okay, moving on. All right, so and Commissioner Olson, this is one that what we're doing here is Tom and I work together on Article 7 that we're now bringing to the rest of the subcommittee to review before we go into our feedback session tomorrow. So the only
Just keep going. I'm just listening in for some context in the background.
okay. So we Tom and I were wrestling with this yesterday. The previously approved bylaws just say this chair shall seek a subcommittee membership that reflects a cross-section of the community interests and viewpoints. And how do you do that? How do you find out what the community's interests and viewpoints are and how are they relevant? And so we thought we could just put, it should reflect a cross-section of the community, and that could be further defined perhaps in the policies and procedures. But is it geographic? Is it membership type? Is it what, how do you evaluate what someone's interest is going to be?
It's sort of a non-descriptive wish without any particular implementation implied. And maybe we're okay with that. If this is the principle and then the PNP, if necessary, we could be more specific, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's a slippery slope to try to define what interests and viewpoints are and should be representative.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to rely on our own best efforts to include those kinds of people.
Right.
And I think that how to do that is probably more in the community plan than it is in the bylaws.
Sounds good to me.
I have a question about the second sentence, because there's the word membership is it really membership of a subcommittee, or is it, you know, I can't think of what word I would replace it with, because they're
Yeah, I
kind of
think it would be,
appointed.
Actually, well, the
well, they're
committee
being
members,
elected now.
yeah, but there's probably members is the better word, but still that doesn't address Susan's.
Oh yeah, I'm good with members,
Okay,
because
Okay.
it's the word membership that is kind of jumping out at me.
yeah, me too. Now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Okay, sound good? Okay, any objections? Okay, and then
so-
we've added,
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you
Membership,
see where
that
she's talking
membership
about
required.
that in the second line? First
I'm sorry,
paragraph, second
first,
line.
how about Tom and then Bill?
Okay, I
Tom?
was just saying that membership was in the original, so that's not my fault.
No, but good catch, Susan. Bill?
Well, I think Susan was looking at the second word in the second line.
Yes. And that's what
Or
I
maybe-
struck. I
Okay.
maybe
well,
you can't see it,
my
but
I can't. My computer seems
let
to
me
lag.
bold it so you can see a
So
little better.
sometimes 5 minutes later, I'll start getting
Okay.
slides of stuff that's happening, and I'm like shaking my head. What's going on?
Yeah,
Okay,
nope,
so
we struck
so
it.
Bill, the membership is used twice in that paragraph. The first one is appropriate because it's the membership of the NCAC, and the second one is not appropriate because it's members of the subcommittee. That's the basic change.
He just couldn't see it. So
That's part of it.
yeah, thanks. So then we added volunteers should indicate a willingness to serve by submitting a notice of interest to the chairperson. The notice of interest should include a brief biography, including any relevant qualifications. And it should instead of shall, because sometimes they're just desperate for people, I think. I mean, it's reality, right?
Oh, the
Not in
reality
our
is,
case where we had 6 applicants.
yeah, well, but the reality is that somebody might get drafted during the meeting and then they wouldn't have a chance to do all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's why it's a should.
You gonna cover this, Tom?
Okay,
Not much difference here. It's
not
just-
not a lot of difference.
One difference is that the current bylaws say that they'll be recommended by the chair and voted on by the general membership, but it's been different in different parts of the bylaws. Sometimes it says appointed by and some says elected by. So we're just clarifying members of both subcommittees or any other standing or ad hoc subcommittee formed by the NCAC shall be voted upon by the NCAC general membership. So making that, and that's something the officers support.
Yeah, I
And-
guess ad hoc committees are, and to me, the term ad hoc connotes just thrown together as opposed to deliberated, but maybe that's just my prejudice in the term.
I
Yeah,
just
to
think
me
it
it-
reflects not identified in the bylaws, Tom.
Right.
Not specifically identified.
Yeah,
It-
okay.
It's something that's not standing. So
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I think there are 2 other types in Robert's rules, but that's too detailed.
Oh, okay. This
I
is
have
Robert's
one
rules.
question on that last slide that I just looking at, just clarification. Maybe removed from the subcommittee by the chairperson. Is that the chair of the NCAC? It's capitalized, or is it the chair of the subcommittee?
You know, that's a really
Yes.
good question, Susan. That's a really good question. I would have interpreted that as the committee chairperson, but I really think it should probably be the NCAC chairperson.
How
I don't
about the
know.
executive board?
That's better.
There you go.
Very good.
Good catch, Susan.
Yes.
Well, who's appointing the members? They're elected, right?
They're elected.
So they're
So
elected, but they can be removed by the executive board.
So we have something in the Article 4 officers about removal from office. And it talks about committee chair, subcommittee chair people and officers and a process for removing them, including going to the county. And this is kind of an anomaly that was in the current bylaws, that it could be removed with 3 unexcused absences. It's not a change other than now we're saying executive board, but I don't know. I think it'd be a question for Sarah, for us to ask Sarah when she arrives, whether we should have the same process where they would have to go to the county for that kind of removal.
Well, I think it also begs the next question, which is who makes a determination about whether it's excused or not and what constitutes an unexcused absence?
Right.
And then to follow up on that, why do they have to be consecutive unexcused? Why wouldn't they just be 3 unexcused absences?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
but over what period of time?
What period
Yeah.
of time?
Because I'm thinking like, say somebody's absent and then they come to the next one and they're absent at the next 2 and then they're present at the next one. And then, they could go on for the whole year
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
wouldn't be consecutive 1, 2, 3 unexcused.
Yeah, I think the original thought here was that if somebody just dropped off the edge of the earth, you could fill an unfilled, effectively unfilled office. I think that'll probably be the only time it's actually used. If somebody was episodic, I suspect we're not going to be able to say, well, you really need to be here or get out.
Right.
Remind me, Nancy, does that removal section that we added, did you say that covers subcommittee members?
It does not. So we can talk about that. This is going to be useful when we go through our Article 4 here shortly, because right now it just includes officers and committee chair people. It does not include members.
Yeah, since
So,
we,
board,
for
I
instance,
mean,
would it be
committee
more
members.
appropriate to combine the removal of these folks also and just have it all into one thing? I mean, is there something unique about subcommittee chair people missing 3 meetings in a row that's different from a board member? An officer missing 3 unexcused meetings in a row?
For the officer and committee chair removal, it can involve more than just unexcused absences. They can be removed for any reason.
Yes, but shouldn't
it has
that
to
really
go to,
also apply to subcommittee members? That's
and it
what I'm
has to
saying.
go to the,
I don't.
yeah, no, I understand your, I understand your question. I think the difference is that, someone who's, well, I guess subcommittee members are being elected now. I think before they were being more like appointed, ratified.
Yes, and I think that was the difference before.
Right.
But now that they're all the same, I'm just saying maybe they should all
be through the same
bundled into
process.
the same, getting rid of them process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little concerned that we would be, I don't imagine this is going to happen very often, but I don't know that the county is going to want to hear every time we have to shuffle people in and out of subcommittees. That's a little below their level of interest, I would think.
What do you mean by shuffling them?
Well, for instance, if we were at the maximum number and somebody started being absent regularly, we would want to substitute someone else. Is that something that's going to rise to the level that the county is going to be interested? If we have a subcommittee which only recommends to the other group, which then recommends, so we're a couple of, we're at least 1 degree of interest away from them. And I don't want us to become a nuisance.
I understand what you mean, but then we have to define shuffling. I mean, not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like Susan was saying, I mean, must it be consecutive or, whatever? Or,
Yeah, well,
or can just a majority of the subcommittee vote to get rid of one of the members? I mean, maybe that's
Well, and that's something that I think would be really problematic because you could just have someone you don't like. And, if you have a board or a subcommittee that is skewed in some way, and let's say our famous, STRs, and you have 4 people who are for STRs or against STR and one member who is fighting them,
okay,
there
well,
could be, you have to be really careful. So,
if the executive board is involved at this point,
right,
they could dissolve the the
right,
entire subcommittee and reconstitute it because it was non-functional.
right.
So we could do
So
that.
this is something I'd like to ask Sarah when she comes. So
Okay.
I'll just make some notes. So, or Wyatt, can you kind of make notes of when, this is one question for Sarah, is removal of committee members. And we had one other back here. Task forces, I think.
Yeah, if she thinks that'll pass muster.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to rework some of the wording on that, no matter what we end up doing. And
I
I
agree.
think
I
one of the
agree.
things we have to determine is whether we're gonna need a special policy and procedure for determining excused absences or not.
Right, right. I think right now it's just kind of up to the chair. And so far, anybody who's come to me and said they can't make it, which is actually pretty rare, I've said, sure. I mean, thank you
Yeah.
for, I'm not going to
So-
say no because everybody's participating so much, but
So
But-
back to Susan's point about 3 consecutive. How about we just say excessive, and then PNP decides what excessive means.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Tom.
what do you guys think?
Yeah.
And just with excessive and excused absences, not consecutive, just excessive.
And I query that whether in fact it should be unexcused or not. It seems to me that if you have excessive absences from a committee you've been appointed to, you're no longer an effective member of that committee. So whether they're excused or not, I'm not sure should be the criteria. It should be whether in fact they're excessive and you've lost your ability to be a contributing member.
I think that's a good point.
Any disagreement?
no, I was just about to raise the same issue. I think
Okay,
that makes a lot
okay,
of sense.
good.
Okay.
think we're
well,
making
violently
progress.
agreeing. Okay,
I
good.
just hope I'm not falling into that basket.
You're not, you have been
I
pretty
wasn't
darn
there. I
consistent.
wasn't there on Wednesday.
That's okay. That's
I
okay.
had tickets
I
to
hope you-
play.
It's a little
You
different
guys-
than,
Nancy said it was okay.
it's a-
Right.
You have a note from Nancy?
Yeah.
He does actually. Through email.
kind of
All
different
right,
family versus, I
let's move
forgot.
along here. It's already 10, so 5. So, and I can't see if people join us. Is there anybody besides Tom, Wyatt, Bill, Susan, and Doug here today? Commissioner Olson, I should say. Okay, section 2, bylaws subcommittee. You want to go through the reasons, Tom?
Well, if I remember them, yeah. Okay. That's just of our, we went, this document and the PNP will require some maintenance. This is all we're gonna need to be able to review it on a regular basis. What it says right there, unless we need to change. Then the quorum, of course, moved to meetings where it belongs. We were talking about more specific about the terms of the subcommittee. And just tried to soften the language so it's more inclusive. And we added authorization for creating maintenance of PNP. That actually probably is going to be in the Article 10. So we may wind up removing that.
Well, the thing that I think that's different about it is
The maintenance,
it's
yes.
putting it in the purview of the bylaws subcommittee.
Yeah,
to-
it
to
is in the
maintain
purview,
it.
needs to be there. But we could perhaps slide that into the definition.
Mhm.
uh,
So that,
which
which is
is
of course
currently
a
is not-
new,
Yeah,
something that doesn't exist right now, but we've been kind of throwing things,
Yeah,
hopefully, we've been
but-
throwing things into that bucket for probably a big project for next year.
so also in the process of smoothing, where we have repetition, I mentioned this to Wyatt this morning in an email, that as we evolve our understanding of these things, when we have to merge something and they're slightly different, I will tend towards the most recent thing we did.
Mhm.
And I'll document that as best I can, but it's a matter of, I know my understanding and philosophy and of what this should be has changed over time. And some of the things I agreed to before, I might not now. So I'll try to
are you
uncover those.
Are you
And when we
talking
do-
about for Article 10, or are you talking about for the bylaws draft?
The bylaws draft in general.
Okay.
In general, we'll have some inconsistencies, and I'll tend towards the latest consensus as opposed to the earliest one.
Okay, so if there is something that varies from what the committee is voted to approve, though, can you note that so that we can
Oh,
all
yeah, yeah.
weigh in?
I mean,
Okay,
the whole process of gluing this back together after we've taken it apart is going to be non-trivial.
yeah, that's right. Okay, well, we're happy to help you. Thank you. Okay, so this is now the wording.
So Nancy, that very last thing on there, on the previous slide about the example,
Mhm.
so it's a temporary subcommittee, so we're not talking about a task force.
Correct.
Okay.
So an example might be the
So
community
just
plan.
an ad hoc subcommittee, basically.
Right, so like
Okay.
the community plan, which could last more than a year, but then they're done. They're not a standing committee that would be done every year, would be
Yeah.
I think I would like to make it ad hoc.
Yes, I
instead
think
of
that's where Bill was
temporary.
going.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah.
Good catch, Bill. We have some great editors besides Tom, who's an outstanding
Yeah,
editor.
I was just thinking about that. There has not been a single thing which I put out that hasn't been touched by someone else to the benefit.
And then in that sentence where you've crossed out temporary, you'll want to change a to an, because it's
Excellent.
Yes, yeah, and prime example right there. So
Yes,
I do
thank you.
appreciate the teamwork we have here.
We do have great teamwork. Okay, anything else on this slide? All right, we're going to move on to the actual wording. So,
Need to make that typeface the same. It hurts
Yeah.
my eyes. Just increase.
it just needs to be a different size.
Okay, there's an A with an up. Well, you can do it that way too.
Okay, so I think the main difference has been that the current bylaws say that the committee is responsible for reviewing changes to the bylaws suggested by the chair or the general membership. And now it's saying that they're responsible for reviewing the bylaws and recommending changes suggested by the officers, members, and or the subcommittee members themselves. As you recall, that was kind of a question we had when we started, and we decided we were members too. And Sarah said, yes, you guys qualify, you can make your own recommendations. So otherwise it's very similar. I think we've talked about this one before and it was okay with everybody. Can we move on?
Have we capitalized bylaws throughout?
You know, that's a good question, Bill.
I've struggled
I-
with that.
I think it should probably, I think the bylaws subcommittee,
It should be capitalized both.
both of them. Maybe.
Bylaws by itself should not be.
Correct.
unless it's NCAC bylaws.
Well, isn't that what we're talking about in everywhere we use it?
Bylaws themselves should be not capitalized. When we look at Robert's rules, it's not capitalized. Did you bring that with you to Palm Springs?
I did not. We flew down and I had to make some difficult decisions, Nancy. It was Robert's rules or my golf clubs.
Got
And,
it. I'm sure it was
Thanks for
tough for
taking one
you.
for the team, Bill.
Okay, moving on. So this just clarifies the, the term, and that we can serve multiple terms. It's a 1-year term, quorum was moved to Article 5, and policies and procedures document shall be recommended by the bylaws subcommittee to be approved by the membership. Nominating committee, removed a statement that the nominating subcommittee is dissolved after a general election, because they wouldn't be a standing committee if we did that. And they may be needed to come back if there's a vacant officer. Should that be officer? I guess office, no. Added allowance for reconvening the nominating subcommittee, since it does not have to be reconstituted, and allowed for situations where the nominating subcommittee cannot be established in a timely manner, requiring the existence of this committee may cause unacceptable delays.
Fortunately, none of that goes in the actual bylaws.
Right. So I think we need to probably split this into a couple of slides. It's pretty busy, but
just for clarification, Nancy, we've got these two sides. It says previously approved bylaws. That's not the current bylaws. That's the previous iteration that the bylaws subcommittee had worked on, and now we're amending it more to this current draft. Is that the two columns?
Kind of. Basically, this is the R1 version of the bylaws. In other words, after it had been an editorial pass. So this is effectively it's the original the sense of the original bylaws.
so this version was approved at the October membership meeting to go forward, that had been reformatted into Robert's Rules of Order, and then Tom had done that editorial pass, and then we all had
Yeah,
gone
we
through
might
and
want
checked
to add that to the intro, that previously approved bylaws means exactly that, because that's a point of probable confusion. It goes on the previous slide, but that's okay.
We could work on that, can't we, Tom, between now and
Yep.
tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
Thanks,
got
Bill.
Plenty of time.
okay. All right, so now we're back here. So the executive board has talked about this nominating subcommittee and whether it's required at all. If it is, how it gets set up, et cetera. And, nominating committees can be really important for an organization to make sure that things are fair and transparent, and that people are found for these different offices. It sounds like for the NCAC, what's happening now is that there's a request that goes out to ask people if they're interested in a position, and to put their write up a statement, kind of like we did when we applied for the bylaws subcommittee. And then the nominating committee is supposed to do some kind of vetting, right? They should also try to go out and find people if people aren't coming forward, and try to find the best candidate. But in reality, it sounds like what's happening more is that they'll kind of do a little bit of vetting, but and hopefully going out and finding people if people aren't coming forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure what vetting is. I mean, as long as you can verify that they're qualified to be a member, that's
Right.
about it.
right.
Uh,
So,
and I think that we should not depend on people volunteering. Some people need to be coerced.
right. And that's what I think
No, I
subcommittee can do.
persuaded. I'm sorry.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, they need to be offered. I mean, sometimes people won't go volunteer, that they would be pleased to be asked, right?
Yeah.
Without even being coerced. So,
I'm having a little bit of a difficult time reconciling the second and third paragraph, knowing that vacancies occur fairly suddenly, and maybe the nominating committee has not even been convened and you don't want to wait for 4 months. Are we actually going to have the executive board step into the role of the nominating committee? Is that the intent?
Actually, you're right. I think that last paragraph isn't really necessary. I mean, if the nominating committee does not cease to exist, we can call on them. We know who they are. Of course, if they
Yeah.
don't exist, that's the problem, because you can't call on them if they don't exist.
right. And currently, the current bylaws have that the nominating committee gets set up. Well, no, it says 4 months before the election.
Well, in
I
other
guess
words, they
it's
should,
actually current.
in the event of a vacancy, shouldn't they just be
Mhm.
convened immediately?
Yeah. Which means they
Yeah.
need to be
But we
elected.
don't have one right now, so that's the
Right.
problem.
Well, we do, don't we? Oh, I
Yeah.
guess we don't. That's gonna be the next meeting, yeah.
So if we appoint them for a year's period of time, even though they may be dormant after the initial
Yeah,
regularly scheduled elections, then it seems to me that the nominating, in the second paragraph, the nominating subcommittee should be convened and submit a slate of candidates to complete the term.
yeah. I think that the last paragraph talks about a startup, where we are in a startup, and we shouldn't put startup problems in the middle of the bylaws. So I think we just kind of skate on that. I don't think we need the last.
Well, the board wanted that to be able to,
The board
if-
wanted that?
yeah, to be able to go, if there wasn't a nominating committee convened, they wanted to be able to handle it themselves, so that there's some way to be able to get work done. Like that happened this year, right?
Yeah.
They had trouble getting a committee together, and so they wanted to be able to have some authorization to be able
guess it
to
doesn't hurt, but
get a
it
slate
does
of
seem a little
candidates.
weird.
But I'm wondering, Tom and I went back and forth on whether it's a standing committee or not, because they don't operate year round typically. And yet it's not really ad hoc. It's something that needs to be done every year. And so, but I wonder if we should go back and say they should be elected at the June meeting for
We
the
don't
next
say
year.
that.
We don't. It just says should be convened preferably 4 months before an election. So I kind of think you
there,
raised a
yes,
good thing,
that's,
Wyatt. I don't think maybe like the bylaws committee is elected at the June meeting, maybe nominating committee should be too, and then they can be convened either at 4 months before the election or as needed if there's
No
a
vacancy.
yeah,
vacancy.
okay. So the problem here is leftover language. That first sentence is a rewrite
Right.
of the previous one. I don't think we
Right.
need that first sentence at all.
Right. Well, the purpose, yeah, right. I wonder if we just change that to say they should be elected at the June meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
What, I would parrot the bylaws committee language. I don't have that in front of me, but however we describe the
Right
bylaw
there.
committee election.
Just exactly that.
Then in the second paragraph, just for a slight clarification, I would say in the event of an interim vacancy, and then the nominating subcommittee should immediately submit a slate of candidates, or should is with great haste, whatever word you want to use, as soon as
Forthwith.
practicable. Wait, forthwith, there you go. I like that.
Okay, so let's just be up
Arcane
here. The members of
language.
the nominating committee shall be elected at the June annual
Oh,
meeting
right.
and serve a one-year term from July 1 to June 30th. The purpose of the nominating committee subcommittee is to prepare a slate of candidates for each officer position up for election that year. Does that sound good?
Yes, but in that paragraph, subcommittee is lowercase, and in the next paragraph, it's
I know.
capital.
You know, we are going to fix that, Bill. Maybe not by tomorrow, but thank you.
And then
In the third
and then
paragraph as
in the
well.
third paragraph, we have two lower cases, so, you know,
Yes.
Well, we want to give equal time to cases.
pick one. Yeah.
We're gonna have to figure out a standard here for all
Then
this
the
stuff.
executive board, we got that up and down.
Yeah.
And
I
then the
just
very
fixed it.
first sentence in the first paragraph, subcommittee
Yes.
cab.
All right. Are we all fixed on capitalization? Okay.
Yes, but did you get the part about subcommittee should promptly submit a slate of candidates?
Promptly.
Second paragraph?
Yes, I would say in the event of an interim vacancy. The first
Oh.
paragraph is just the routine.
Got it.
Every
Okay.
year they do it. The second paragraph is if there's an interim vacancy.
Right.
Not
So
gonna
in
wait
the
4
event of
months,
a
so-
vacancy, nominating committee shall submit a slate of candidates.
I would say she'll promptly submit.
Well, what does promptly mean?
It is relatively quickly without without an exact time frame. I mean,
Time urgency.
You know,
4
I'm
months
just,
is-
I'm just
Well,
gonna say promptly. We will fix it if we have to. Okay, thank you, Bill. Any
Bill, I think
objection to
the
that?
term of interim too is important to add there.
in the first line.
Yeah, because with defined terms, I suppose the possibility exists that a vacancy would occur on the expiration of a term
Yes,
without
that's
having
why.
it been filled.
I'm
Yes,
just gonna say
exactly.
an officer position.
But every year there will be a vacancy in an officer position. That's what Wyatt and I are saying.
Oh, so that, oh,
So
okay.
if you were to say in the event of an interim vacancy,
Interim. Okay,
then it's differentiating from the first paragraph.
I hear you. Thank you. Does that capture it?
And
Anyone
you'll want to
object?
change A to an before interim.
Thank you. All right.
Would somebody wake Commissioner Olson up?
No, he's doing
Commissioner
something.
Gotta have
Olson
put him to sleep.
is following along, I am sure, with rapt attention, Commissioner Olson. Thank you for sitting through this. Okay, Sarah, have you joined us? I can't tell when we're sharing the screen. Okay.
Yes, I
So-
have been listening and you guys have had a
Okay.
great conversation. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're
We
all
have
glad
a
to hear that.
question for you about
Okay.
in Article 4 officers, we have a section on removal of an officer or committee chair with a whole
Right.
process on how to do that. And
Mhm.
in the existing bylaws, there's something in there about removing a subcommittee member. Where did it go? Where did it go? Here. The subcommittee members with 3 consecutive unexcused absences may be removed from the subcommittee by the chair. We don't know which chair. We don't know if it's the subcommittee chair or the NCAC chair. We started fiddling around with that. And
Mhm.
then it was suggested maybe it needs to be in the same process as in Article 4, which involves going to the county for a review of this and having go to the executive board, having it a vote by the membership, going to the executive to the county. And we don't know if this will ever need to come up, but the removal from office for the officers also says for any reason, whereas this is talking about absences.
Mhm.
Do you see a difference between removing subcommittee members and officer committee chair people?
I think your rules need to be clear on, the grounds for removal, right? Just especially
Mhm.
so the people that are making the decision have a clear path before them, because those are really tough decisions to make, right? And they can be pretty
Right.
contentious. I would say the executive board, I think that would be an appropriate decision at the executive board level. I think
Mhm.
the committee chair bringing it forward to the executive board and explaining would be sufficient. You're just going to want to make sure that there's clear protocol and guidelines for grounds for dismissal.
Okay, and
Yeah,
so,
the only one that we'd say it is absences, non-participation, no other
Yeah.
criteria. So it's much less of a burden to prove.
As
Mhm.
contrasted
Yeah.
to removing an officer where it can be for any cause.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's good, and I do like the difference in that. I would just say, having been on committees and had to go through that before, whoever is the committee chair or who is keeping track of absences, in attendance, you just want to make sure those records are maintained. And then what is the duration of time for the 3 absences?
so
Is it
we
within a year?
actually
the
changed it
process?
to make it more vague and just say subcommittee members with excessive absences, and then we have to define what that would mean, I would think, in the policies and procedures. I think it may have been actually a little
Yes.
bit better by having 3 absences, but right now it's 3 consecutive unexcused absences, but we got into, well, really, I'm not going to repeat the whole conversation, but we thought excessive
Yeah.
absences would be, would you think it'd be better to define it here or to put it in policies and procedures?
I think you could put it in your policies and procedures, but I think you need to put some sideboards around what's excessive and what's
Mhm.
unexcused.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually crossed out unexcused because,
Yeah.
because that's hard to define.
That's a tough one. That's a tough
Yeah.
one.
Right. I mean, we've been so great with our committee. If in the rare event somebody can't make a meeting, it's
But I
you know,
think
they excuse it.
yeah, I think that putting it in the policies is fine, but you
Okay.
want your policies and these statements to align with one another.
Okay. Thank you. You know, it occurs to me too, one thing we didn't really tackle, Tom, is how does the chair get set up? And, you know, in our case, we all got elected, we got together and we kind of went, thank you, Sarah, very much. And we just went,
Oh, my pleasure.
you know,
Yeah, let's all vote
we didn't
Nancy.
know one another. And what's that?
No, we just give, yeah, we'll add that to the bylaws. Anybody named Nancy gets to be chair.
Okay. Hey, I'll go with that. Yeah. Ha.
I fully support that, Tom.
Thank you. You guys. Okay, so have we finished
Yeah,
up
we
at
probably,
nominating committee here?
I think it's in policies. We decided that it was policies and procedures as to how a committee organizes itself. We don't want to
Okay.
cast that in the bylaws.
Hey, I like that. Okay.
Well, and I'm so sorry to jump in, but to your point too about the process for nominating a chair, I think it
Mhm.
would be good to have that in your policies and procedures too, especially if, the good news that, the great thing is when there's multiple people interested, but you want to
Mhm.
have a fair process to figure out who that person is so you don't get a committee started with, any question about process and equity.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm not sure that it requires a whole lot. Having spent a lot of time dealing with juries, the first instruction they get is that they're supposed to retire and elect a chairman or chairperson, and they do it. I mean, it just gets done. So I'm not sure it requires a lot.
Yeah, we'll take your language and put it in the PNP.
Okay, because I think you don't always get the right person, but I guess you wouldn't anyway, so when you don't know one another. Okay, sounds good. Okay, are we done with nominating committee? Are we okay with everything else here?
Yeah, I think it probably needs a bit more smoothing. We can take care of that.
Okay, you want to talk about section 4, Tom?
No. Oh.
Okay.
Okay, other subcommittees. We basically wanted to clarify that they needed to be defined and that we need to, that they've got to have a charter and can't just exist out of, and that charter has to be documented. And that's again a PNP thing, but we need to make sure that people understand that there is a committee and that they are charged with doing something specific.
Okay, and that's kind of the end of it, along with the policies and procedures document that we are authorizing. That will specify a lot of these different things.
It's a grand and glorious document to be done.
So this is basically what we have to present tomorrow. We'll clean it up and make it more for a feedback session format, but how does this sound to people? Are we okay with what we've talked about here? Take these edits and clean them up.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve the document as revised to present at the feedback session tomorrow?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor of presenting the revised document at the feedback session tomorrow, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Nancy, I'm
Uh-huh.
sorry, I was on mute, so if you look at the very last slide, section 4, other committees,
Mhm.
is there a difference here between the second sentence of the first paragraph that says the purpose shall be established at the time of formation, and then the second paragraph says the policies and procedures will specify the purpose?
Actually, the difference is that we'll have authorization by the NCAC as a whole, but the documentation gets written down so people know where to look to find what that is. So it is different. One is authorization, the other is documentation for reference.
So to come up with a new subcommittee, the entire membership has to vote on that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
you.
pretty much. I think, the executive board the officers have really feel like it's important to have the membership vote on everything. That's a substantive decision. And part of that is because of the history from the last year or
But
so.
I guess what's confusing me is if the membership votes on the purpose of the subcommittee,
Mhm.
how would the policies and procedures be able to vary the purpose of the subcommittee?
No, it's not very, it's just a documentation. The alternative to putting it in the PNP is that someone has to look up the minutes of a meeting where a committee was formed. And this is meant to avoid that inconvenience. It's not meant to be different. It's just meant to be, this is where people can go look and see what it's about.
So this
And
is an
not
active
have to
second
know
sentence structure. I'm wondering, because of your confusion, Bill, I wonder if we should make it a passive where we say documentation of new or existing subcommittees shall be contained in the policies and procedures. Would that?
Yeah, color that purple and we'll make it say that. Is that all right, Bill?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We'll clean this up. Okay. Okay, this will just remind us. Okay, sound good? Okay, I'm going to file this before I lose it as Rev 2.
And we'll have a Rev 3,
Yeah.
which
tomorrow.
will be the cleanup.
Yep. Okay. So let's stop share for a moment. And so Tom, are you ready to share Article 10?
Yes.
I'm going to let you here in a moment there.
As soon as I find out which one it is. I only have about 4 of them open. Okay.
And then Nancy, what did you say on Article 5 and 6? Are we going back to those today, or?
We will,
Yes.
as time permits, and it should permit. But Bill, I know how you like longer meetings, but yes. So after we do Article 10, which I think is going to be fairly simple, hopefully, then we will be reviewing Articles 4, 5, and 6, and 3. And all we're doing for those is reviewing the output from the feedback sessions. So those should be quick. Fingers crossed.
Okay. And I'm not seeing a share here. Okay. I wasn't full screen. Didn't realize it wasn't full screen. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, so this is partially edited, but it's mostly true. What is the feedback session number?
It's 8,
8, okay. And it is on
Wednesday night, the 20th.
20th. As you can tell, I'm woefully, I'll make this better, don't worry. So essentially it follows the regular recommendations or is in the process of being made that way. All the information here will be substantially the same, and it's just a matter of it's going to get rearranged for recommendation. So basically, I don't think there are any issues here. So we're going to present changes or additions. I'm not even sure that there's, in the original one, we didn't even have that. So,
No. Mm-mm.
so I think maybe
Why does this look different than what Nancy sent to us?
because I'm in the process of turning it from what it was into the recommendations format.
Ah, okay.
Which, as I said, I'm not completely unprepared for this meeting, but certainly relatively unprepared. Anyway, so I maybe just present Article 10,
Right.
because that's what we're doing. It's made out of whole cloth there. And then discuss any issues, straw polls, if we need them, update the text. And there are 5 sections, maybe more. Governing laws, organization, enabling of policy and procedures. And I've adopted the section concept there. It's just mostly in place. Trying to be consistent. But I also want to, if there are other topics, and that's mostly for us, if we remember anything else we threw into the Article X that we don't remember yet, that is a possibility that we might have missed something. That I may have missed something. So we'll find that out. As Wyatt pointed out, the language is not exactly great, but these are formal kinds of things. And mostly what's in Article X is the kind of definitional or background information. It's not in the main line of what the NCAC is about. It's kind of the supporting information. And governing laws is one of them. This has not changed since we first did it. And I'll have it, this isn't existing. This is going to have to be proposed.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, as I say, it's not quite baked yet. And then
Yeah, it's almost like Article 6. I mean, Yeah, executive boards, which is new, right? We just didn't
Yeah.
even do proposed and existing. We just,
Yeah, so I'll change that format
proposed.
to kind of eliminate
Mhm.
that because it
That
just didn't
box.
exist before.
This is awfully picky, Tom, but that second sentence, I would make that the NCAC because it's just so far away from the
Good point.
first reference.
Believe in optical distance being a problem. Yep.
Question for Sarah, is it an order or a resolution of the County Board of Commissioners?
That's a great question, Wyatt. It is order, it is not resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Do I? It is, that's an order, okay. Okay, and
We can fix
That-
the format later, Tom.
so I don't think there's any choice or discussion about that.
No,
Now, here's a change. I tried to reword that. What you see on the left is what was there in the previous version. And this is a suggestion for a rewrite. Give people a second to look at this. One of
Tom,
the
I'm gonna
This was-
throw in a
this
possible
was-
edit here for you.
Okay,
Looking at covering and conducting running together. Just to
Oh.
avoid the two INGs consecutively, maybe it should be rules governing conduct of meetings.
okay, good. And basically, we wanted to say that, be explicit that the PNP does not supersede the bylaws. It's meant to be an adjunct.
so by existing, it's existing from our committee though, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
existing in the current bylaws like
Okay.
this, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so when we present Wednesday night, it'll be as new. This is just for the committee to
it's all
compare,
new.
right?
Yeah, this is just for our discussion.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, could you put PNP in parentheses so that we can use PNP after that?
Okay, I think
Just
it's
'cause
for
we-
usually first use, and this is almost certainly not going to be the first use. But
That's
I'll-
true. You're right.
I'll,
When we get
make-
it into the document, but.
when we get it into the document, we'll do that.
We did have one of our members tell us that that was confusing, just needs one time. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and definitions. Now, these are the definitions that we agreed to in the
Article 3.
Article 3, and these are straight just change the format a little bit and they're the same text.
Mhm.
So I hope we don't have any disagreements with these. Please, no.
No, let's move on.
Yeah,
We've discussed this to death. You guys, thank
Um,
you for taking all the time to do these and yeah, but
Okay, so the one that's missing is task force, and we
Yeah.
just munged that. So
Mhm.
I will use the new task force because
Okay,
we needed to have that in the definitions.
Yep.
So that's in green, and it's going to agree with what we just agreed in the previous one. But I
Right.
don't have that to do a copy and paste, so I didn't.
and Sarah, with that, that's on the other presentation, but we're trying to define, I've heard task force being used for like the community plan and that kind of thing. We're trying to distinguish that the community plan would be a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee. and not a task force. And a task force might be a group of people who are doing not mundane, important work, but isn't making recommendations for things. So sort of like the group of communications coordinators that might be working on the website and things like that.
No policies
No
are
policy.
generated by them.
And so that
I
they don't
agree with
follow
that.
under Oregon public meeting law. So we just want to clarify what a task force is so
Yeah.
that
So we don't want to
people-
have our web people having to have an open meeting every time they want to change a page.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like identifying them as a task force. But, and I agree that the community plan group is a subcommittee. It is not a, it is, yeah. That is correct.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Funding. Yeah, there was a mention of funding in Article 3, which was kind of inappropriate for a document like this. But I think we do need to mention that we do get contributions and that we have costs and how we don't have membership fees, but we should be explicit about that. This looks like the original language from Article 3. The contributions and fundraising activities shall be used to offset the cost of NCAC. That seemed to be a little bit limiting, and we might get some funds from the county. I don't know if that's a contribution or not. I guess we could count it. I mean, it could happen. Also, we may be able to apply for a grant for some reason. Somebody wants to encourage local unincorporated groups to have better communications so that they fund our website or something like that.
So
it's
Tom, I'm so sorry, can I jump in on that and just for just a second and comment on that?
Yeah.
So, I've had CACs, the grant discussion has come up before.
Okay.
So grants, they would have to be applied through my office, right? So we would become the grant recipient and applicant. But I do think there's value in this section when it comes to talking about, the CAC, you could do some, small fundraising. The parameters of that are pretty limited, but yes, as far as funding from the county, I did confirm with the county treasurer. I'm going to go ahead and I've given her the receipts for Zoom. So that is something that we will continue. And I just recently built that into my budget for this coming year.
Okay.
So we will definitely be able to do some refunds, and then other costs for mailings and different things. We would actually do those mailings through our office.
So how would you recommend, I get to grants, maybe we can leave that off the table and put that in the P&P if we want to, but is the funding statement okay the way it is? Does that include?
I raise a question here, Tom.
Sure.
Aren't we just really trying to identify here what the appropriate use of funds received by the committee should be?
I agree with that, Wyatt. Yes.
So in other words, we should just say all funds received by the NCAC shall be used to offset the cost of operations or whatever you want to call it.
I like that. I agree with Wyatt.
And so, but this is interesting, Sarah. So you're saying that if the NCAC would like to propose grants or apply for grants for some special thing like better website or whatever, we would need to go through the county. Is that what you're saying? We can't do it independently.
Can you hear me, Nancy?
Now I can.
Okay. So that is correct. Because you are an advisory body to the county, it would be like the housing commission or someone else. The county becomes the holder and the recipient.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I think that would be important to note somewhere, maybe in the P&P, but somewhere that's important information. I don't know that anyone realized that. Maybe people did, but I didn't.
It
So
should be
thank
all
you.
contributions and funds received by the NCAC.
Mhm.
I think we're just saying all funds.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Take
have a question about, I understand how the county's reimbursing the CACs for Zoom costs. What about, because we are having to archive public meeting videos and things like that, is the county also willing to reimburse for storage, cloud storage fees, et cetera?
So things like your website, which would include probably the cloud storage element of it, and then your Zoom subscription. Yes, those are the three things that I have talked to the treasurer about. What we will probably eventually do is load that storage up to the county's OneDrive. You know, because if you are an advisory body, that is something we should probably talk about, is how we want to do that and develop that protocol.
Okay.
Because we do want to make sure that those records are maintained moving forward. I have all the paper stuff from, you know, the original CAC organization and the community plans. But as things get digitized, yes, we'll want to make sure the county has those too.
Okay, so that
I'm
sounds
gonna
like
add
something else
another-
for the PMP later.
Yeah, I want to add something else to this. We are going to clearly be receiving funds possibly for restrictive purposes, i.e. reimbursements by the county or otherwise. So it should really read, all contributions and funds received by the NCAC shall be used to offset the cost of the NCAC or any purpose for which it is specifically given.
Actually, could you send that in a text?
Well, but Wyatt, there will also be unrestricted funds.
Right. So if they're unrestricted, then it's used for the general cost of the NCAC, the way I read it, Bill.
Did
Okay,
you,
so-
I'm sorry, did you read what you had again then?
I don't even like contributions. I would just say all
I would
funds
just say all funds, yes.
received by the NCAC shall be used to offset the costs of the NCAC or the specific purposes for which it is given,
Or
for which they
funds,
are
yeah,
given, I'm sorry.
yeah. And that would make cost plural in that.
I like all of those comments.
Yeah, I do too, if I could remember them.
Or for the
Help me out,
specific
Wyatt.
purposes.
For the specific purposes for which they are given.
If any.
I
Well,
abhor the
if-
term
Yeah,
for which.
so after NCAC, add the word or in the next to the last line, there you go. So I think that takes care of your, if any, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you.
My apologies, Tom, for not thinking of this earlier in our email exchange.
No worries.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody not completely unhappy with this?
I think it's good for Wednesday night. So are there any other comments about Article
Okay.
10?
So application for grants is off the table. Funds is going to be kind of, that's just part of what happens. So we don't really have any questions on that. Is that
Okay.
agreement? Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
So if, could we have
Anything else?
not at this time,
Okay.
but it's nice to have a place to stick stuff if it comes up later.
Okay.
So thank you, Wyatt and Tom, on working on this and all the work on the definitions for Article 3 particularly. So could we have a motion to approve sending Article 10 to feedback session number 8 on Wednesday as revised? Bill is holding his thumb up. So Bill is making that motion. I
That
assume.
indicates a yes.
Okay. All those in any discussion? All right. any further discussion, I should say. Okay, all those in favor of sending Article 10 as revised to the feedback session on Wednesday, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Are you capturing
Okay,
these
so
motions?
this is R0, R1 will be more presentable.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Can you stop sharing and I'll start sharing Article 4. Thank you, guys. We are going to move along here. And I am going to go back to what? Article 7. Okay, so now we are.
No break for the wicked. Okay.
All right, so where's we are going to go into library meetings. We are going to go back to PDFs here because we are going to be optimistic. Article 4.
Okay.
Officers. So since we have met, we've had a number of changes to Article 4. And 2 of them were before our feedback meeting, and then another set were in the feedback meeting. So we added the position and job description of the immediate past president to the article as suggested by Barbara. Reorganize, and the executive board loved the idea. Well, they liked it. Reorganize the secretary and communications coordinator duties. We've added clean copy slides, added the communications coordinator and elections voting to the original baseline text slides. We've noted
okay. Go ahead.
We've noted the definition of policies and procedures in the introduction. We've added the need for a record retention schedule for P&Ps under secretary, added the need for defining the treasurer's report and P&Ps under treasurer, added the need for defining payment options under treasurer currently using debit cards, and minor editorial revisions. So in the feedback session,
I'd like to
ahead,
add,
Tom.
I'd like to make sure that you add subsequently edited by Tom Sipe, because it looks like we all 3 worked together and we didn't. And then first.
Oh, here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I can't add anything.
I don't want to
right
get
now,
nailed for that.
Yeah, I think I kind of, Bill and I kind of edited this stuff, right? So
You can take my name off of it for that matter.
whatever, I don't care. It's good to me. You've been very
Okay,
helpful with
fair
it.
enough.
So it's PDF right now, so we can make a note if you really want subsequently in there. After the feedback session, we added the removal of the communications coordinator position under officers. We moved it back to, well, we'll go into it here. I discussed physical postings, whether we still need them. We talked about possibly adding a marketing subcommittee to get more members and let people know about the NCAC. We talked about that the election voting needed to be public by person, and removal from office. Sarah had checked for us that that's okay with the county for us to have that section. So basically, we didn't go back in and actually, some of the others I blacked out everything that was had been agreed upon that was different, but I think we have everything in green, hopefully, that we did on the fly. We had already agreed to all this to present at the feedback session. All that had been agreed upon, yeah. So we talked about adding a communications coordinator, maybe removed from the position with or without cause by the executive board after consultation with Tillamook County Council. So this was done before we did meetings where we talked about removal again. So I'm wondering if we need to actually add that in here. I think that kind of falls under article. Well, we have removal from office later on in here, so we should look at where that belongs. So we've got the communications coordinator work in here. We had a discussion about, do we need to have postings in physical locations? There were some suggestions on where we could post information about the meeting. So the current bylaws talk about having postings at 3 different locations, and Jeff's been doing that with putting things on telephone poles and wrapping them in plastic and doing it before every general meeting. We're thinking it should probably just be annual notice that, hey, here's the NCAC, this is what it is, this is where you can find information. Our general meetings are held on these days. And then look at maybe some places where we could post those. So and move those to the PNP. So right now, all that's in the bylaws, and we're talking about moving them to the PNP. So what do we think here? Can we just go ahead and plan on doing that? I think when we talked with Jeff about it, and I think he was fine with that. He could even have somebody responsible for doing that.
But this anticipates physically posting it.
Correct.
Well, we might want to say that, because you could certainly post information about the NCAC on the website.
Right, and we have that.
Important to physically post it, I think I would say that. That's what we're trying to say.
Right. So right here, physical locations.
Yes, but in the text, it doesn't say
In the
that.
text, yes. You're right.
You could put the word physically before post in 0.6. Physically post information.
Right. Because we have the electronic down here. Okay, so let me make a note. Sorry, I don't have it active. I should have put the PowerPoint in. So I'll go back and review the, okay, so page 14. Add physical. Okay.
When we put it in the policies and procedures, it might be nice to say that it'll be removed at some point.
Good point. PNP remove.
Especially on phone poles.
Yes.
Especially ones near my house.
Okay. You've seen them too.
We have no visual pollution on Hillsborough.
Yeah.
What, Tom?
Telephone poles are not actually legal to post on.
Okay.
The village
But
doesn't get that memo.
We don't say anything here about it having to be legal. We just say physically post it.
Fair enough. I'm going to be quiet.
All right. So really there wasn't discussion there. Everybody was fine with all that. Anything read? So voting, we were going to check with Sarah on whether ballots can be confidential. And we've added that all voting must be public, including individual votes. So we'll add that in. I think that's.
Would you like an update, Nancy?
I love one.
Okay, so I did finish the conversation with county council. Voting election ballots must follow the same public record path. So unfortunately, no. We also talked about limiting the number of votes. I did share with him the poll that was overwhelmingly in support of that during the last the public meeting, the second to last one, I believe, is one that was discussed for engagement. And we can't get there. He is still saying, no, it needs to be, if you have ownership interest if you meet the eligibility criteria, you get to vote. The fact that there is no way to track or monitor that, and it would be on an honor system, also makes it problematic. And so I'm very sorry to share that with you, but that was his determination.
Okay, so we've moved on from voting to membership with this last one. Is that what you're saying?
I'm so sorry. So I may be not giving you the right updates at the right time.
No, I'm
okay,
just a little
so-
confused. So at first
Sure.
we were talking about that we needed to have people's votes attached by name individually. But this last
Correct.
thing you said, are you saying that something about limits?
Right. So all votes are public. There are no election votes that would not be public. So whatever you're voting on, it's all public, transparent.
Right.
So
By
then,
public, Sarah, do you mean that it has to show that Bill Miller voted for Tom Sipe or Susan? I mean, you're attaching the person's name that voted and how they voted. Is that what you're saying when you say public?
so if someone were, depending on how you guys do your voting system, whether it's in person or through Zoom, if Zoom, how do I want to say this? If someone were to do a records request and ask for those voting results to see who voted, we would have to provide those if there is a way that Zoom tracks that.
But if
So
you
you
have a
can't-
yes or no question and you go to the public meetings law and you see that Bill Miller voted for that issue, do you have to show whether I voted yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
So
that's kind of
so
weird.
even with, I mean, I'm assuming you're not going to get a lot of requests for voting results to that degree. But I mean, essentially, whether you're all in the room asking to raise your hand or you have an online voting system, it's transparent. And, you know, if someone wants to know how you voted and if that's tracked, it's no different than if you're sitting in the room together or if that's tracked online.
Right. I think the
Yeah.
difference is that if under the old system in the room, you could ask for a ballot vote that wouldn't necessarily have been public. But what I am hearing you say, Sarah, is that we don't have to actually go out and actively post these things on the website. We can just wait for a records request and have the information held, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Can
I
I,
think that should be fine.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, hi, Michael. Welcome.
Hi, Nancy. Sorry to be late. We had friends drop in from California on their way up to Washington, and we're sort of right in the middle, and so they come. The last thing you said, Sarah, was two conditionals. One was if you have such a vote, and the second one was if you keep a record of such a vote. But neither one of those answers suggests that a person's name is tied to any particular individual vote. And so that leads me to believe that if we keep records of a vote having been taken, but not necessarily the name of a person who voted such and such, that person's name is still confidential.
I would say that, okay, I'm gonna respond in a different way, Michael.
Okay.
So if you know, rewind 5-6 years ago, we're all in the fire hall, right? So we're having a CAC meeting, a vote is called. Everybody raises their hand. The vote outcome is recorded, but there was never a recording of, you know, Michael raised his hand for the no vote and,
Yes.
you know, Bill raised his hand for the yes vote.
Yeah.
So I would say, you know, recording the vote for the purposes of the outcome of the voting process is important, but, you know, tracking names, I don't think, well, I will tell you the other CACs do not do online voting to this extent, and they don't track who voted what way in the in-person meetings. It's just the vote outcome. So that's what I think is important, that is retained by the CAC,
Okay, all right.
is the number of votes and the outcome.
Yeah, and
So
I
if,
think that's what we all understand to be reasonable.
so if we actually save the names, they could be made available to an individual who requests it, but we don't have to publicize it.
That's
If we don't-
exactly right.
So if we don't actually save the names, but we could, are we still okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, thinking this through a little bit more myself, because I don't know what the back end of Zoom looks like when you tally those votes. Does Zoom keep a record of how every registered voter voted, or does it just keep a record for you of the voting outcome,
It
the
gives you,
results?
it gives you the gory details. So, but if we
Okay.
chose not to save them, we can't be dinged for that?
So what it,
That's a good question.
it
No, I
can give
think- I
us,
think
it
as
can
far
give
as-
us two different ways. We can record, and with both of them, we have to take action to download them because they disappear after, but it will give us the total tallies of how many people voted which way on different things or for which candidates or whatever.
And
It will also give us a spreadsheet of how people voted.
Can you
individually.
filter that, Nancy? Can you filter that maybe just to where you could record the outcome of the vote?
Yes. And I think that's what we will do.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good approach.
That actually would be great, Sarah. I mean, I think that's exactly what we were
Yeah.
asking. So
I can
this is
tell you,
very
yeah.
helpful.
I
In
can
the last
also-
15 years, nobody's recorded in a meeting with a show of hands who raised their hand at what point.
Right.
and
I think
but-
that was
but
the
what I'm-
fear.
I can understand a situation where somebody would, in a parliamentary procedure action, call for a roll call vote. And that's perfectly acceptable, and it is the right of a person to do so, in which case each person records their vote individually. And under those circumstances, then names will be tied to a vote. But that's a very, very rare situation.
Can you call
That's
for
usually
a
a-
roll call vote or a ballot vote?
No,
No,
a roll
roll
call
call.
vote, specifically a roll call vote. And that is usually occurs in a very contentious situation, not the kind of thing where you're electing somebody to an office, but a very contentious situation and a controversial issue. And it's very, very close and the numbers are not real clear. And somebody says, point of order, I call for a
Right.
roll call vote.
Right. So thank you, Sarah. I think this is extremely helpful. We will look at that when we go to meetings, and that's terrific. So
Nancy, since we're.
but there was another thing Sarah said at the end, that I think may be relating to membership. Is that right, Sarah? About limiting?
So I did talk to county council about limiting the number of votes per property.
Mhm.
And I was unsuccessful in changing his determination.
Yeah.
So I showed him the poll from the
Mhm.
public feedback session that overwhelmingly supported limiting the number of votes per property, and he said no. With that, one of his concerns as well was, there's no way to appropriately monitor or track that. And so the way the voting needs to work is just based on the eligibility criteria to vote, with no limit on if you have multiple owners, they all have a right to vote.
So even if there are 30
So-
of them from one
so-
property or whatever.
Yes.
Can I
Yes,
make a
and that's what I
comment on
brought
that?
up too.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Okay.
Can I
So
make a comment to that, Sarah? So,
Certainly, yeah. I don't
if-
know what
if-
I can say in response, but
Well-
yes,
it
please
sounds
do.
like you really tried for us, Sarah.
In case you ever want to talk to him again, it seems like, because you mentioned this both times, that his concern was you couldn't monitor or track that. So I assume he understands that there's no way to monitor or track whether or not 10 or 20 people own a property. And you could have
That is correct.
Yes.
as
Or
many
whether or
people
not
vote,
someone
because
is
they want people
actually,
wandering in off the street and randomly voting.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. No, it's absolutely. And that is something that all of the CACs, that is something that could happen anywhere. But, the tracking is one piece, and then the equity in meeting the criteria is the other. So, sorry, I've probably approached him 5 times on this topic, and I keep going back, and I can keep going back, but I think we're at a point to where the outcome is not going to change.
Well, I
Does
appreciate
that
all your
determine
efforts
our
on that.
recommendation, Nancy?
It does change our recommendation drastically.
Why can't
I
we
do,
recommend what we think is correct, and then he can say no? I mean, I don't want to be in a position of recommending something that we don't believe is the right recommendation, just
right.
because.
So why don't we, when we get to Article 3, why don't we revisit that? But I appreciate, Sarah, that you talked to him about it. I kind of agree with Bill here that it's just that in terms of the process of the approval process, they'll kick it back, right? He's making it clear they're going to kick it back if we have that. One of the things that I think Wyatt brought up when we talked about that issue of the limits was absolutely correct, is that since we would be on the honor system, I think Wyatt said that in most cases, why don't you repeat it, Wyatt, that the honor system works?
It does. I look at it from the viewpoint of my unfortunate criminal experience, but
criminal
bottom line
attorney
is that
experience.
the people that we ended up in court with the exception of possibly speeding tickets, 99% of the general population follows the law. And it's only that minimal 1% that we ended up having to deal with, thank goodness. And it's because they either want to or feel compelled to. So it seems to me that we just don't need a lot of enforcement provisions and bylaws concerning a committee, which is advisory anyway.
Right.
So what I would recommend, just because of the incredible process you've had and the public outreach and the results of the voting, bring it forward in the draft to the CAC, and I will bring the entire document to him when you are done. And I'm happy to have the conversation one more time. But I think to make sure that, the community understands that you've worked really hard on this and you've honored that outcome. I will do my part to the end as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah.
You
Appreciate
need-
that very
Absolutely.
much. Yeah, it was one area where we actually got consensus. I mean, we were getting emails from people and people, that have very widely diverging views on everything else, but they all agreed on option 2 and pretty much 2 votes per, it was, we were feeling really good about stuff. So, okay.
Well, we're not done yet. So let's just,
Okay.
we'll keep it on.
All
But
right. Thank
we
you.
did warn people that it might turn out that way.
We
So
did. Thank you so much. Okay,
My
so on to, so we'll clarify that. It was good news though on the voting. I feel much better about that. And you told us the county council approved the removal from office section here. And so this is where we might want to change it to say any executive board member. No, you said to keep it separate. So from committee members.
yeah,
So
and we'll capitalize appropriately.
So we could put committee members in here, or we could leave it where we say committee members may be removed from a committee for excessive absences with the approval of the executive board in here, or we could leave it in subcommittees, but that could be an editorial decision later. We could go ahead and bring it up.
Well, other than this says
tomorrow.
removal from office and.
That's true. Good point,
subcommittee
Bill.
members, huh?
Let's just keep it over in subcommittees. How's that? Okay, so that's that for article. What are we on? 4. So, how do you guys feel about this with a little bit changing wording? Can we go ahead and approve it to be put in the draft bylaws as revised?
I think so.
We have a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I would so move.
Okay, any discussion? Michael,
I'll second.
thank you. Any discussion? We're a committee, so we actually don't need a second, but thank you. And all those in favor, please, of taking the Article 4 as revised, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Okay, we can start editing, Tom.
Oh, good. Something more to do.
In your spare part. I can help. Okay, Article 5. So these are the updates from the feedback session. For Article 5, we changed the title and wording of general membership emergency meetings. We added executive board urgent meetings, clarified no quorum for information only meetings, noted several items to be included in the policies and procedures, and clarified requirement to have individual votes recorded in public, which we're not going to re-clarify. So everything that had been in red is now in black, other than what came up in the feedback session, which was green. So there was a question about exception for subcommittee meetings on whether they could be not electronic or hybrid. And that sometimes it's better to be able to have some flip charts up on a board, on a wall that everybody can be looking at and that kind of thing. So that's something to bring back to the committee. And specifically, it was discussed for the community plan committee to be able to get together. Personally, I feel like you need to be able to have a hybrid meeting. If it's going to be public, it has to be hybrid. But if all the subcommittee members can meet in person, they should be able to do that as long as there's a camera trained on the flip charts and people are hearing the results, but it still would be a hybrid meeting, correct?
Yeah, so the answer to that is delete that green.
Yeah, I think so.
There is no exception.
Yeah. And I would say to that with the plan review subcommittee, if they want to meet in person, I can host a virtual meeting. I have all of the equipment. We just need to meet somewhere where there's Wi-Fi and I can take care of the rest. So that is absolutely doable.
Great, thank you. So we will delete the green here. And thank you, Sarah. Okay, everything else.
Yeah, I'm sorry, a tacky change there, Nancy.
What's that?
A little tacky change where it said committee chairperson, it should just be committee chair.
Where are we, Tom? Back
That first
where there was
slide that you were
green?
looking at. Right above the green.
Okay, where did you want chair?
Right there, committee chair instead of committee chairperson. The chairperson is the executive of the whole shooting match.
Right, but it's
I don't know if there's
there. You've got the chairman for a general meeting, membership meeting, or the executive board, or the committee chairperson if it's going to be a subcommittee. It should be subcommittee chairperson.
I thought that subcommittee chairperson was just called the subcommittee chair, but perhaps
no. You're the one, Bill, who read Robert's rules and said,
well, I
it
thought
needs to be chairperson. Are you changing?
No, I thought chairperson
his
was for
copy.
the entire membership.
Yeah,
No,
Oh,
I think we had. I think what we had discovered was that if it's someone who's chairing a committee, they are chairperson, and if it's someone
okay.
who's just running a meeting, as in chairing, but is not the chairperson, then
I think you're right.
but in this
But yeah.
case, it would be the committee chairperson, I think.
Or the subcommittee chairperson.
Subcommittee, yes, we need
Yeah.
to edit that out. Okay, thank you. Now back here. Okay, so we had quite a discussion on this, both in the meetings meeting, and then in the executive board feedback session about emergency. And Tom and I talked a little bit about this yesterday too, about there seemed to be some concern among people who do some of the emergency response that we were stepping on toes. And it helped a lot when Sarah said that there were some good reasons to have this urgent thing outside of the emergency thing. So Tom thought of some other reasons, though. Do you want to
Yeah,
talk?
okay.
Tom?
And I didn't say this at the meeting because we are not supposed to be participating in the feedback sessions directly, but I'm a CERT, and one of the functions of the CERT organization is to dispense information when a disaster happens. One of the conduits that they could use would be NCAC. So we could be used by them to get information, since we have contact information with the community. So we wouldn't be an active, we would be basically a tool of the emergency response team. So we're not driving it, we're being driven. So that would be a very reasonable thing to do.
Okay, thank you. So any comments on what our language should be?
Should that, in the second paragraph where it says shall be given to all registered members, is that different from members? I don't think we call them registered members anywhere else.
Yeah, Jeff would really appreciate getting rid of registered.
Yeah.
He hates that word.
So,
You should delete
okay,
that.
thank you. And sorry that this is a PDF. I really made a mistake not getting these on as PowerPoints, but making a note. Okay, so
Well,
what do we want to do? Do we want to call it urgent? Do we want to keep it emergency? Do we want to call it time sensitive? What do you think?
I like urgent myself. It's smaller, less
Okay.
words.
Okay. And does this sound okay? The wording urgent meeting should be called to discuss a time sensitive or critical situation or issue is determined by
I think
the
urgent
NCAC
works.
chairperson.
Urgent works. Can I get back to the notion of registered?
Yes,
Did you decide we're going to drop registered?
yes,
Then the result would be shall be given to all members.
correct.
All
Through
members
email.
are anybody who fits the category, right?
Yep.
And now how are you going to assure that all members have been notified?
Email. And yes, in order to get an email, they have to be registered, but that's just the way it is. I think registered.
And this doesn't mean all people that are eligible. Everybody that's eligible is not a member. You have to do something affirmatively to become a member.
We're trying to get away from the implication that we're keeping an active roster.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that. I'm trying to think of the paranoid attorney who's saying, wait a minute, that means you have to get in touch with all 1,000 people.
Nope, they're not members unless they tell us they're members. And when they tell us they're members, they're members.
And when they tell us they're members, they have to give us certain information. It's a requirement that you get contact information.
Yep.
Why don't we just say we will, a minimum 24-hour notice through the NCAC email server or something to that effect. Does that sound okay? Because I think Michael raises a good point.
Okay.
Is that all right?
No objection.
Okay. Registered members. Okay. Reword. All right. Anything else? Okay. This is fine. So this is new. So after we had our meetings, our Article 5 feedback session, Jeff sent us a note saying, and I communicated that to each of you individually, but suggested having an urgent meeting for the executive board as well. And I didn't hear any objection, so we just kind of came up with something that would be similar. Any objection to having this for executive boards? I think it makes sense to me. Okay. And quorum, we added, there's a suggestion to have something for informational only meetings where there's no quorum. So this is new. No quorum is required for meetings that are purely informational and for which no business is conducted, which is kind of redundant, but just makes it clear.
Yeah, I'd say exclusively instead of purely.
Okay, sounds good. Gosh, I wish I had this on PowerPoint. Purely.
Have you learned your lesson?
Exclusively. Yes, yes, for next time. Thank you. But I want to be quick and be able to get this quickly, so I'm not gonna.
You
Okay.
went through the slides so quickly, Nancy, that on section 3, I think something was copied that shouldn't be there. I think it's two or three slides back. The urgent boards. It says in point 2 that notice will be given to all members. Is that?
That's the same thing. Thank you. Thank
So when
you.
the executive board meets?
Yes, we need to do the same thing there. Thank you, Bill. So page 15. Item 2. Thank you. Okay. When I redo this, I will send this out to you guys to send you a link. Good catch. So I'm scrolling quickly. Okay. Conflict of interest, we talked about a little bit at the feedback session Wednesday night. We followed up based on the input from Commissioner Olson and Mark Everett, and did do some follow-up on the definitions in the League of Oregon Cities and Oregon Ethics Commission. And so this paragraph is kind of a summary of what they have in the Oregon Government Ethics Commission definition. But as we mentioned the other night, it's very complicated on how it's actually administered. And so we're going to look at that for the PMPs on how, in some ways you come in with a certain conflict just basically when you're a member of the NCAC, you're going to have a certain amount, but you don't need to actually, it's not a real conflict unless, it's interesting. And maybe at some point there's a training that would need to be done, but there's an excellent training thing that I'll send to Tom for the PMP stuff.
So unfortunately, I glossed over the fact that I had added a conflict of interest definition. And let me put it in the chat.
Okay.
And I think I did that.
So that would be in Article 10.
It's a
Yeah.
definition only.
It's a definition only.
Okay.
And I thought it conflicted with this language.
I just put it in the chat.
Isn't it the paragraph there at the bottom under changes?
No.
It can, the bottom paragraph can be simplified because there's a definition elsewhere.
Tom, did you say you just put something in the chat because I didn't get it?
I don't see it either.
Okay, what about if I send it instead of just
There.
putting it in the chat?
Oh, it just came.
Yes, amazing that is.
Any financial
Sorry.
interest or personal relationship that may affect a person's ability to exercise their independent judgment on a matter before the committee or subcommittee. Okay, that sounds good to me too. So we'll work on that. And Wyatt, I see your thing too. So when we get to Executive Board Article 6, let's talk about that too. Okay, and Susan, it looks like you're back. Okay. So I think that's it. Nope, there's more. Voting. So all votes should be reported publicly. Each member's name shall be linked to their vote. So Sarah, it sounds like maybe we could take out that second sentence and just say all votes should be recorded publicly.
I think so. I think
Okay,
you can just say all votes shall be recorded publicly and you're good.
great.
Or a public record of vote, or however you want to word that, to where
Public
the vote
record.
outcome is there, but you
Okay.
don't have to tie the names to it. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so
that
that's
will
it.
save a lot of heartache.
It will.
Absolutely.
It will. Okay, so any other general, well, could we have a motion to approve Article 5 to go to the draft bylaws document as amended, and I will send you the amendments.
So moved.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to send Article 5 as amended to the draft document, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed, please say no. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Let's go
So
into.
I have before we get on to the next topic, I have
Uh-huh.
a suggested subject for our last untitled feedback session, which is going to be cleanup, where we find that we've contradicted ourselves and resolved them. I
Okay,
suspect we will have a list of those, and we should just go through that so people know what happened.
okay. That sounds good. So basically, so you think we are going to need
I
feedback
think we're
session
going to
number
need,
9?
yeah, we've got some things that we're flipping a little bit on previously agreed to things by the membership. So
Mhm,
at least not objected to,
mhm.
I suspect we'll need that. We can cancel it if we need to, but I suspect that'll be a topic that'll be worthwhile.
Okay, okay. Anyone disagree? Are we up for next Saturday meeting? A week
Nope.
from Saturday for
Next Saturday? Oh, we're a week from
the
Saturday.
23rd.
Okay. Much as
Yay.
I would love to have more meetings than that,
No,
I think that
I
might be
think you're
enough.
right. I think you're right. We
Or
can
would it
do
be
some
possible to combine it with our next?
Um,
Good.
probably not.
Uh,
I mean, that would be nice, but I think our next one could end up, you're talking about the Wednesday one with Article 10. I think we'd have to have more notice to go through all of that, so I think we'd have to do. Let's see.
Bye, Sarah.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Guys,
Sarah,
take care.
very
I'm so
much.
sorry. I have to go. Yes.
No, thank
Meeting
you.
tomorrow afternoon.
Yes,
We have
2
Yep.
o'clock.
Okay. I'll see
And
you
I'm
all
hoping
there.
it'll be short. Thank
Sounds
you.
no problem. You guys take care. Great discussion. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Okay, so so anyway, let's go ahead and plan on. We'll draft something to put in as kind of a catch-all for the 23rd at 2. Okay, so Article 6. Next time I
Are you
will
going
put
to
in
stick with
all,
PDFs?
well, it means I have to go back. All
Oh,
right,
okay.
let me go back. I can do that. We can go into, I think
And
the
then
last one is under substantive changes.
While you're looking for that, Nance, I just mentioned I have to pop out here in just a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I know these are long, but they should start getting shorter very soon here.
That's the
In
plan.
the project plan. Shoot. Okay, Article, we're at 6, right? Where'd 6 go? Officers.
That's 4.
No,
You did, that was 4, not 6.
thank you. Oh,
You're in 4.
yeah.
It's Robert's rules fault. They used Roman numerals.
Okay, so this is the right one, at least. Sometimes get confused on where I stuck it. Okay, so executive board, basically all we had to do here after the feedback session was change the title and wording of emergency executive board meetings. So hopefully this will be really fast. Okay, so urgent executive board meetings, urgent meetings of the executive board should be called to discuss a time sensitive or critical situation or issue as determined by the NCAC chairperson.
I see the word
So
registered in
We
point
have it
2.
right here. So what did we end up saying?
Nothing,
Make
just
this an
delete it.
example. We said shall be sent via email.
Oh,
And this is live, of course, but
Could you just put the word email
in
before the word
Google.
notice? Minimum 24-hour email notice shall be given to all NCAC members. That
Shall
way
be
you don't have
sent to
to.
the email list or something.
well,
Okay,
I mean, it's kind of obvious that you can't send
Yeah.
it unless you're on the list, so I think
right.
it's all right without it.
And this is a Google Doc. Okay, I'm just gonna delete it. All right. To NCA members, how's that? All right. Should be sent.
Isn't that what point 3 says? It says it'll be posted on the website and via email.
It does, doesn't it? I don't think we need it all, do we?
One is a notice and one is a link.
Yeah,
No,
Maybe
it
we
says
maybe combine it.
a link will be posted on the website and via, so the link is posted via email. Is that what you're saying there, Susan?
Well, it seemed like number 2
one is
was
notice
talking about
and
the
one is
notice
the link.
and
Yeah.
one is the link for the meeting, but you could combine both sentences. I mean, both 2 and 3,
Probably could.
streamline it.
Yep. So everything else is just the same as it was. So could we have a motion to send the Article 6 Executive Board to be included in the draft bylaw document as amended?
So moved.
So is it, just a quick question, so is this section then in 2 places about the urgent meetings?
It is. So it will most likely be under, so in here, it's not in 2 sections. You are right. So what we did with this is that we had just when we presented Article 6, we just had the parts that are actually in Article 6, which is sections 1, 2, and 3. And then section 4 was just related sections that were moved to Article 5. So they actually belong in Article 5. The actual Article 6 will only be these sections. So
Nancy,
Okay.
just a question for you. You know, I raised that question by the chat about duties of the executive board.
oh, right.
We got to throw that out for discussion, I think.
Okay, so I need to find the chat because you had. There, right?
Yeah,
So for some reason, I'm having trouble getting into chat. Because there's something blocking me because I'm sharing. Can you read what's in the chat? Because I can't get to it at the moment. I don't know why.
yeah, I can. Hold on. I guess the purpose of my chat was that I had noticed, or at least felt, that we had assigned other duties to the executive board that are not specifically identified in this section.
Mhm.
So I wanted to add a section, or suggested that we add a section F, subsection F, to the duties, which would read let's see, I'm trying to read my chat now.
I don't see your chat.
Hold on.
I saw it earlier, so this chat seems to have disappeared.
And it should read subsection F, other duties specifically assigned in the other provisions of these bylaws.
Okay. I'm bringing up mine that's not there. I'm into one now that's not live. So let me get in here. I can't.
What is your verb there, Tom? Shall provide or?
I see it here. What it says is including those specific duties assigned in other provisions of these bylaws.
Well, that doesn't follow the same grammar as all the rest of it. It needs to.
No, it doesn't, but I didn't have it in front of me when I wrote it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can grammarize it. That's a word.
That's a great
Grammarize.
word.
I like that. Grammarize.
Okay, so now I'm doing one that's not live on the web. Okay, so F.
Maybe perform other duties.
Please dictate because I can't see the chat.
And then whatever Tom or Wyatt's stuff was after that.
Specifically assigned by other duty or other provisions of these bylaws.
Okay, does that sound okay to people? Kind of a catch-all? We're in the middle of a motion, but really you're offering an amendment, which is appropriate, so. Okay, yeah, okay, so does any objection to the amendment offered by Wyatt? Okay, so the amendment's adopted. Any other discussion on the motion to send Article 6 as amended to be included in the bylaws, draft bylaws? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. I'm going to save this document. It's R8. All right, thank you guys. Stop share. Okay, so it is now 11:49. We have Article 3 is the last one. Do we want to go ahead and talk about Article 3 or can we save that over for the next one, particularly in view of what Sarah just said? We can think about that a little bit. What do you want to say?
I want to give some thought to it and maybe communicate with Tom about his thoughts. So I'd like to defer it.
Okay.
I agree.
We will have a feedback session on the 23rd where we could discuss this also, but I kind of like what Bill was suggesting. It sounds like Sarah was okay with that. It's like Doug left too. That we could go ahead and just go with the recommendation that we want and make us change it.
Yeah, if you don't ask for it, you won't get it.
Right.
And that way it'll help us with the membership if they come back and say no, because I'm worried about voting through all the work that we've done on the bylaws. If people are opposed, they could just blanket say no.
Right. Well, do you want to just very quickly go through Article 3 since we have it here?
I've got it queued up if you want.
Okay, let's just do it quickly because I think we beat a horse to death and you guys have done a great job.
You didn't include that in the stuff you sent, did you, Nancy?
I did. You had to go in last night to the link.
Oh, okay.
Bill, we put a ton of stuff up yesterday. I'm sorry. It's been very busy and Michael, at the beginning of the meeting, I apologize to you because it took me so long to review your minutes. So we're just going to do them next time.
Okay, so basically what I did was a consolidation of what we had done as a result of the feedback. No change there. These were accepted without change, and they're now reflected in Article 10. That's unchanged. And that's when I introduced the decision tree. Now, it turned out that we actually followed this process, even though we said we weren't going to. I don't know that it's important to keep that.
No,
I don't think it is. I don't know, do we want to document the actual results of each stage, or should we just leave it at that? There's something to be said for putting the numbers in here.
Yeah, I went ahead and put the poll results in this morning, actually, in case they were needed, because we actually had a number of members who had signed up for the meeting who didn't come. So they're in the feedback session file and the aggregate numbers. So you could, if you wanted to, add it in, but I don't think it's really necessary. It sounds like Sarah really advocated on our behalf. With the council and shared numbers with him.
So
will there be somewhere else where he would see that again? If not here?
If not here, it's buried.
Yeah, why don't, if you have time, the polls are in the feedback file for this session. For session
is this
5.
going to go to, this isn't going to go to the council though, right? It'll just
No.
be the actual form of the bylaws.
Right.
Yeah, although we might be able to have them give them the text and then make our case for when we think they're going to say no.
Yeah. With Article 3, we might want to actually give a justification. I mean,
it's not exact. It's a majority report rather than a minority report, but
right.
We could list his as a minority report.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he can say yes or no.
Like that idea.
Okay, so in terms of, are we going to re-present this to the membership? I don't think we are.
Oh,
so,
no.
So all of this backup information is only going to be for archival purposes. And
really,
we're not we're never going to present it. So maybe that's by virtue of having the numbers in I think that's enough. So never mind. So so the supporting documentation, like the opinions and all that, I think those all go away and just come up with a pure, this is a recommendation, because this is still a discussion document. So I haven't turned it into a recommendation document, but
right. I think the recommendation can actually be really simple.
Yeah, it will be quite simple. Here's what was changed live at the meeting in red.
What we could do, Tom, is for the recommendation actually have more of the 6-point justification format or background recommendation, justification, alternatives, and why they were rejected. And one of the alternative that was rejected was to not have limits, and why it was rejected, and then to put in some of the numbers in it of the member, the people who came for the straw poll.
Okay, that sounds simple.
Well, I could do it if you want. I mean, I know you're tied up, so.
Okay, we could do that, but if this is meant to be I guess that's appropriate for that. Okay, fair enough.
We could talk offline. It's fine.
Okay, and that's been moved. And that basically was simplified. So no other changes other than that. That's what funding used to look like. Okay, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion to approve Article 3 as presented to the draft bylaws document? And congrats, everybody. Okay, Michael makes the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of transferring Article 3 membership to members to the draft document, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Well, that was worth some time. Thank
Yeah.
you, Tom and Wyatt and the whole committee.
Can I,
Yay.
can I wax less than well?
Well, I have to leave in
Do you?
1 minute.
Oh.
for
I have
a
5% on my
test
iPad. I'm plugging in
for-
again.
for a
I
test
just-
in San Francisco. So
Okay, I'll wait until next time, but I do want to have a discussion about this whole notion of 2 members, no members, et cetera, and and its correlation with the fact that we're an advisory council, because we need to have a clear understanding of how we're going to respond to the questions when they come before the membership.
right.
And I don't have a feeling that that is clarified or okay with them or whatever. I think it's a convoluted discussion that I think we have to sort out from among ourselves.
I agree with you, Michael, and thank you for bringing that up, and let's put that on the agenda for
do
next
that.
time.
Yeah, let's do that next time.
I appreciate that. Okay, we have no public to comment, so I think we're good. So if there are no objections, we will plan on keeping our March 23rd feedback session, and I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow at 2 for our discussion on subcommittees, Article 7 subcommittees, and then Wednesday night for Article 10. Thank you for everything you guys are doing. I mean, you're just an amazing committee. It's been such a pleasure.
And thank you, Nancy, for leading us.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a big job, Nancy. We all know it and we all appreciate it.
Well, it's been a great experience for me, and so thank you, all of you. Meeting adjourned. I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to remember to do that, and see you
right.
tomorrow.
And I hope you make it to your event.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.